Hello, welcome to a new video. My name is Gonzalo and I'm going to explain how we model this Coca-Cola bottle in Blender. This one is sold in Argentina. I have one and that's how I get the dimensions and the silhouette of this bottle. The first thing is load the image that I was going to use as a reference. It's a vectorial tracing that I did of the bottle. And the whole time I was having the bottle next to me for better reference. For me, it's easier to use the actual dimensions. After the image, I added a plane. I give it the height of the bottle. Then I scale down the background image and make it the same height as the plane. And then I align the image to the origin in order to center it. To start the modeling process, I added a cylinder with a number of vertices of 40. It's important to use a number that you can divide by 5 and by 10. I roughly matched the cylinder with the image and I added loop cuts and positioned them along the z-axis to match the shape of the bottle. It's essential for me to add a subdivision surface modifier at the beginning of the process to have a better preview of the final shape. The next thing I did was scale the different edge loops except from those that are on the label part of the bottle because that part is a perfect cylinder. During the whole process, I was alternating between the different types of visualizations to be more accurate, and since the line of the draw I did was too thick, I decided to follow the middle of that line. To be more accurate, what I did was add more loop cuts, and you can get sharper edges by putting the loops closer to each other or by using the command Shift E to get even more sharper edges. And that's what I did in the neck of the bottle. Now I will explain why it's important to select a number that you can divide by 5, and that's because the bottle has a polar symmetry, and that means that it's symmetrical along an axis, in this case a vertical axis, and it has a specific shape that repeats 5 times along that axis. And from a top view or a bottom view, you will clearly see those 5 identical parts. In some parts, the bottle remains cylindrical, but in others, it deforms according to this polar symmetry. For example, between the neck and the label part of the bottle, it repeats its shape 10 times. So in this case, I selected 10 equidistant parts and I was scaling them along the X and Y axis. The process I did for the polar symmetry is a little intricate. I know that you can use an array modifier, but it wasn't working for me. I wish that there was a better way to work these kind of shapes. And here you can see that I'm doing something similar on the bottom of the bottle. I separated the bottom part of the bottle because it was easier to work with it. I added some inset faces, and instead of moving them or scaling them along the X and Y axis as I was doing with the other edges, I do it along the Z axis. And that way I get that indentation on the bottom. And then I was slowly trying to make that flower shape that soda bottles usually have. For that I was moving the vertices, and I had to remember to select all the symmetrical vertices. If you mess up, you can remove the part that you make the mistake and just keep that part that is okay, a fifth of the total bottle, and then rotate it along the z-axis by the origin 72 degrees. You have to do it 5 times and you will have the perfect symmetry. What I did at the center was a grid fill to avoid endgons, and then I select just the center of that grid and I move it down with proportional editing selected, and that way I get kind of a dome or a spherical shape. And that way the edge manipulation is finished. Then I proceed to add a solidify modifier and make it go inside the shape I have made. As the neck is kind of thin, I had some issues with the modifier, so I had to do some adjustments. Then I added the label and I removed the top and bottom faces, subdivided and shaded smooth. I adjusted to have it really close to the bottle, and then in the material preview, the viewport display, I changed the color to red. That way I can see if it was intersecting the bottle or not. Then I duplicated the label and did the thingy that goes in the neck of the bottle, and give it some thickness and some edge loops to make it more accurate. Then another cylinder was added, and in this case for the the cap of the bottle, I decided not to do the threaded part of it. I selected a big number of vertices for the cap to make the indentation that it has. I could have done that with bump, but that way was easier for me. And to get that texture, what I did was select that part of the cap where I needed all the faces, and I get an intercalated selection. That way I extruded the faces, and with Alt S move along normals, I move it inside. Since it had enough geometry, I decided not to apply a subdivision surface modifier, but I selected shade smooth and beveled it a little. And then it was shading time. I start by UV unwrapping the things that I needed to unwrap, for example, the label. I searched a label for this kind of bottles and make the UV match that image. For the cap, I use a basic red color. I try to match it to the Coca-Cola logo. And I was playing just with the roughness. Before the transparent plastic material of the bottle, I decided to model somehow the liquid, the actual Coke. For that, I duplicated the bottle and I was deleting the vertices that I didn't need, and I scaled it a little. I get rid of the solidify modifier since I didn't need it, and I closed the top part. For the background, I created a cube, I deleted some faces and used some bevels to make an infinite background. There I'm adding the Coca-Cola logo on the cap. And for the material of the bottle, I use a mix shader. I use a glass shader first and then a glossy BSDF. By joining them in the mix shader, and I use a layer weight as a factor with event of 0.002. For both the glass and the glossy BSDF, I bring down the roughness. I make them really low, and for the color of the glossy, I make it gray. And for the liquid, I use a reddish, brownish, dark color, typical of the cola soda. I played with the transmission and the subsurface, and something that I did later was adding a little condensation bubbles on the interior of the plastic. So this is the final result. I hope it helped you. I did this video after the time lapse I did of this process. I did that video a long time ago, but since there was some comments asking for more information, were asking about the reference image, I decided to make this kind of tutorial. It's more of an overview of my process. I don't know Blender that much, so I did my best to explain what I did. So I made this video for you to see how I work with the program. Maybe it will help you with some of your project. Well, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to share and subscribe. That will help me a lot. Thank you. Bye bye.